Okay, council's live.
Thank you, Brianna. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. First off, apologies for us being late coming online. We had an extremely long committee of adjustments. Even if we'd been sitting in chambers, we would have finished up the committee of adjustments before we switched to our regular meeting. But I do apologize to you for those that are watching. I just have a few housekeeping items that I need to get through. This meeting is being held virtually and is live streamed over the town's YouTube channel. To access the agenda, it is online at the town of Greater Napanee.com. The Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, Council's Rules of Procedure, Code of Conduct, and other pertinent legislation apply to these proceedings as if they were in-person meeting. If any member's connection to the meeting is interrupted, then I will ask council to pause until the member can reconnect. If the member has not reconnected within 5 minutes, then the meeting will resume. I will do a roll call for the minutes of the official record of, I will do a roll call for the minutes, which are the official record of this meeting. And then I will ask the clerk to do a call for those staff members that are joining us. Ward 1, Councillor McCormack.
Ward 1 present.
Ward 2, Councillor Richardson.
Ward 2 present.
Ward 3, Councillor Pennell.
Ward 3 is present.
Ward 4, Councillor Norrie.
Ward 4 is present.
Ward 5, Councillor Johnson.
Ward 5 present. Thank you, Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Kaiser.
Present. Thank you.
And Mayor Isbester is present as well. Madam Clerk, I would ask you to state the staff members that are also participating, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. With us this evening from staff, we have John Pinsent, CAO, John Koenig, General Manager of Emergency Services and Fire Chief, Peter Defoe, General Manager of Infrastructure Services, Jeff Cuthill, Director of Capital Works, Michael Nobes, General Manager of Growth and Expansion, Grant Zetterberg, General Manager of Community and Corporate Services, Michael Fisher, Director of Human Resources, Chris Brown, Manager of Facilities, Brianna Clement, Community Engagement Clerk, Katie McPherson, Deputy Clerk, and myself, Jessica Walters, Clerk.
Thank you so much. We have had called the meeting to order in open session earlier. So I will proceed with the adoption of the agenda for this as prepared for this evening's regular session of council. Please move by Councillor Richardson, seconded by Councillor Johnson. All in favor of that motion? Motion is carried. Thank you. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof? Seeing none, we have a public meeting under the Planning Act. I need a resolution to convene the public meeting, please. Move by Deputy Mayor Kaiser, seconded by Councillor Pennell. We have Mr. Knowles, who is on screen with us, and I know that we have some others that will be coming in. Michael, I will let you take over from here. We do, I know, have some people that are coming in to join us, and once they're all in, we'll maybe go over what the rules of coming into the public meetings and how we treat them so that we can keep them moving and not have conversations between people. But all requests to speak should please come through the chair. So have we voted on the resolution? I guess would be the first thing. Yes. Okay. So Michael, I'll let you go ahead with the official plan review initial presentation, or am I turning this over to Mark?
Thank you, Worship. I'll take it from here and then I'll turn it over to Mr.
Okay.
Tao. So this presentation this evening will be conducted by the town's planning review consultant, Mr. Mark Tao with IBI Group. And you will be providing an overview of the official plan review process and identifying the work that's been undertaken thus far. And we'll provide an overview of the project schedule, our major milestones, and the timeline for completion of the work. I would like to note that this is the official kickoff meeting, and further open houses and public meetings will be held following this meeting to solicit important feedback from the community as the process unfolds. So staff will also be publishing a Bang the Table page for the public to provide comment on the review process, and comment on draft materials as they become available. Written comments are also always welcome and may be addressed to staff outside of official public meetings and open houses. They can either be directly sent to staff or submitted through the soon to be published Bang the Table page. And they'll be taken into consideration during our review and will be made available for council's consideration throughout the process. So I'm aware of a few individuals who requested to speak tonight at this public meeting, and staff would invite such individuals to make their representations following Mr. Tao's presentation. So if we could turn it over to Mr. Mark Tao, he can take it away from here.
Michael, sorry, just I think we may have lost. I think we did have Matt in here, and he appears to have disappeared on us. So I'm hoping he can listen in. Oh, there he is. Okay, here he is coming back in again. Oh, okay, there, we've got him again. I'd lost him on my screen. Okay, sorry, Mark, to interrupt there. Go ahead, please.
No. Well, thank you very much to your worship and members of council, and to the public also who are listening and participating. So as Mike outlined, this is a kickoff meeting of sorts for the introduction to the review of the town's official plan. I do have a presentation. I'm not sure if Michael, am I going to share my screen?
Yeah,
or
if you should be able to share your screen. I'll ask Brianna if she's made that feature available. I believe she has, though.
Through your worship, yes, you should be able to share your screen.
Looks like, yeah, there we go. Okay. Just full screen here. All right. Can everybody see that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. The official plan update is something that happens typically every 5 years, or until creation of a new official plan, which is kind of the next round for what would happen for the town. So just by way of introductions, my name is Mark Tao, a planner with IBI Group. Also on the team tonight is Robin Brown, who is a land use planner who specializes in land needs assessments in terms of population projections, housing needs, employment land needs, etc. And also Angela Bonamici, who's on the call or on the meeting tonight as well. So the three of us are leading the team. There are a few support staff as well. So the agenda, it's a very short presentation, about 12 slides, and then we can get to some questions, comments, etc., and move on from there. So just quickly going through what an official plan is, what has changed since the last official plan update with respect to provincial planning, the county official plan, what we've identified as being areas of likely study or change for the new or for the updated official plan, and then opportunities for public involvement throughout the plan, throughout the process. So there's 4 phases to the project. We're in the initial phase, which really started in the fall in terms of doing some background work, gathering information that's necessary to prepare a report that looks at land needs, housing projections, those types of things. We've had a formal pre-consultation meeting with the county, who's the approval authority for the official plan update. And tonight is the mandatory introductory council meeting. And so as we've progressed through the fall into the winter, we've prepared an initial draft report, just looking at some of the areas of interest and areas of study that we're aware of, that staff are aware of, things that the province and the county are expecting to be assessed and changed as part of the update. And then we'll move into phase 2, which some of that work has already started in terms of the background report. And during that time, we'll have opportunity, as Michael mentioned, for public input through the Bang the Table page on the town's website, as well as just general email communication, receipt of comments through that method, or written comments received by the town. We're also looking at meeting with stakeholders who may be interested. So this may be major landowners in areas of interest, community groups, also with various agencies as as the review goes on. And then in phase 3, which is going to happen in the spring, we'll actually have the draft official plan update document prepared for public review through open houses, hopefully in person. Much prefer to do that type of thing face to face, but we do have a plan to provide input or provide opportunities for input virtually or in person. So we could do both if that's possible as well. And then through the summer, we would have a final update document that's prepared that takes into account any comments that would have been received from the public, from council, from agencies on the first draft, and then have a final public meeting to receive any last comments, and then present to council for adoption. And after council adopts the amendment, it would go to the county to approve. So in terms of official plan, for those who are not aware, an official plan is a policy document that's mandated to be created by the province. It's one of two primary planning documents in a municipality. One's this official plan, the second is the zoning bylaw. So it's the official plan is kind of an overarching higher level policy document, and the zoning bylaw is more the nuts and bolts of how individual properties get developed in terms of uses and how big the buildings can be, et cetera. So the official plan is more of a higher level document that directs growth, identifies urban areas where types of uses should go, and manages land supply and protects things like agricultural lands, aggregate resources, rural areas, environmental features, et cetera. So the overall goal of an official plan is to make sure that there's adequate land available, the right type of land available for development, and that we're protecting resources that should be protected from incompatible development, and also just making sure that land uses are compatible with each other, and we avoid conflicts between, aggregate resources, for example, and residential uses. Those types of things. They also help set out goals for the municipality in terms of growth and direction for infrastructure investments, such as roads, water and sewer services, and where those things should be directed so that they are in the right place to accommodate growth. So as noted, an official plan has documents required to be created by the province, and then the province also requires under the Planning Act that the official plan be updated every 5 to 10 years. It was last updated in 2014, so it is due to be updated, and also is an opportune time because of the implementation of the county official plan, as well as a new 2020 provincial policy statement. And the county is also undertaking their official plan review at this time as well. So the two reviews and updates will mesh nicely. So the 2020 provincial policy statement, which is the province's own kind of high level planning document that municipalities and councils have to give regard to and make decisions that are consistent with. There were a number of updates that were made. As you'd expect, there were updated policies about climate change and taking into account impacts of that on development, on hazard areas with higher water levels and flooding. Also, the province did provide some increased flexibility for rural residential development. There's also enhanced support for affordable housing, market-based housing, given the current housing crisis, which is good to see. There's also policies talking about engagement with Indigenous communities, so a higher level of engagement is encouraged and required by the province. And then also with the pressure for more housing development, the province also wanted to ensure that existing and planned industrial uses were protected still, and that housing didn't overwhelm or didn't take precedence over also providing opportunities for jobs and employment uses. The county official plan, as you may be aware, the first county official plan was first approved in 2015 and is now being updated, as I noted earlier. So the county now essentially takes the place of the province in terms of approving official plan updates, which is generally a good thing because they are likely more aware and conscious of local issues, local planning priorities, local constraints and concerns. So far, I think in the last 5 years, from staff, in our perspective, it's been a good transition to have the county taking on that role in place of the province. What the implications are for the town's official plan update is we have to make sure that we've added all the different types of aggregate resources that the county has identified and make sure that we're protecting those same resources in our mapping. And the other major item is that the county, as the upper tier, if you will, does their own housing, employment, and land needs forecasting, and then they are responsible for identifying where that projected growth is going to be distributed, whether it's to Loyalist Township in their settlement areas and into the town of Napanee and its urban area. So the town does have to essentially take those housing forecasts, intensification targets, and we have to implement them and plan for them in our planning documents through the official plan. So as the county is going through their official plan update right now, we will be working with them to ensure that they're using the best information about housing needs, about population growth, and ensure that we have adequate land allocated to the town for development as well. Beyond these kind of mandated areas of update that are required from the province and the county, the town also has the opportunity to make changes that it thinks it needs to make to address change over the last 5+ years, areas of concern. And so four prime areas or big picture areas that we had identified over the last number of years together with the town staff is making sure that we're accommodating the demand for residential growth by designating fringe areas of the town. So these are areas in the northwest of the downtown, to the south, and then to the east. They're not yet designated as residential. They're kind of a holding designation for future development. And with the housing needs that we've seen, the housing crisis that we're seeing across the province, certainly the town has seen that increase in growth and interest. And so as part of this OP update, we're looking at designating and changing the designation of these some of these fringe areas to residential, or to kind of a mix of residential commercial areas, to allow for more development, to allow for more residential development to happen in the right locations based on availability of services, road connections, etc. Second thing looking at is potentially adjusting the boundary of the town. There are a lot of lands within the urban boundary, and generally that can be a good thing, but it could also, if it's not really needed for urban development, it could constrain potentially the uses that could happen in those areas. For example, if water and sanitary sewers services aren't available to those lands, there's a challenge with allowing them to be developed on private services. And so we want to make sure that we don't have too much of that land that unintentionally causes desirable development not to be permitted. As part of the fringe area, or looking at making more lands available for development, we're also going to reassess the Selby Creek secondary plan area, which is this large area in gray here, just to the west of the commercial area on Center Street. It's been designated previously as a future secondary plan area that would be developed for residential, commercial, parks, etc. But there hasn't been movement towards that area being developed. And so we want to make sure that we're not constraining the land that's available for development. And so we're going to look at whether or not we shift what was projected to be accommodated here in terms of housing and employment and commercial lands, and look at shifting it to other areas that are maybe more likely to be developed in the near future. And lastly, looking at what we call the older industrial area south of 401, so south of 401 and east of Center Street. So looking at how this area, which was traditionally the industrial park for the town, it's kind of been gradually developed or surrounded by residential development, commercial development, and the town has shifted its focus to large-scale employment uses to the north of 401 in the service industrial park up there. So we want to make sure that the area in the old industrial park area is developed in a way that's attracting the right kind of uses, probably more in the realm of business park uses. So to accommodate kind of higher order, more prestige type business park uses, and then have the area north of 401 be more for traditional industrial uses, employment uses. And that's partly to encourage development in the industrial park to the north in terms of true industrial uses, and then also to ensure that the uses that are in the old industrial area are all compatible. We've got a mix of daycares and office uses and retail uses and lighter industrial uses, and that they can all fit together and function well without having conflicts amongst them. So in terms of public involvement in the process, as I said, there's multiple opportunities for public involvement through multiple open house opportunities, individual stakeholder meetings, public meetings such as this, and then also more individual consultation with written submissions to the town or through the submissions through the town's website. So in terms of next steps, as I said, we're moving into phase 2, and then through the spring, summer, we'll be presenting the draft and final versions of the official plan update for comment by the council as well as by the public. And that concludes the formal presentation. So happy to receive any questions, comments at this time.
Thank you. If whoever is controlling the screen, if they could take down the presentation, only because I can't see all of council or staff that are on there, please.
Yeah, I'm going to see if I can.
That's okay, Mark.
That happen on my end. Otherwise, the clerk, it might be faster if the clerk wants to take back control.
Brianna or Jessica, do you want to take control and take down the presentation? There. Thank you so much.
Okay, I figured it
makes it much easier.
Yeah.
Michael, I'll let you go ahead and take the meeting back into yours. And I do know that we have at least one person that has some questions or wants to make some comments this evening. So Michael, I'll let you go ahead, please. Unless no, I'll let you go ahead, and then I'll let council ask their questions.
I don't have anything else to add, Your Worship, beyond the presentation by Mr. Tao. We do have a couple of individuals, I believe, in the meeting now. I see one there. I do know that there were a couple of others that requested to speak. I don't see them on the meeting unless they're just hidden from my view. But perhaps we can turn it over to either council, however you wish to proceed, Your Worship. If you wish for council to have a question and comment period now, or if you would like for the members of the public.
I think actually I'll let council go ahead, and there may be some of the things that Matthew wants to address as well, and then of course he will have his opportunity to say his bit as well. So council, some questions directed to Mark on the process and so on. Deputy Mayor Kaiser.
Thank you, Your Worship. Two things. I'll pose them both to you. If I have to repeat, I will, but I'll give them both to you up front, and Mark, you can take them and run with them afterwards. The one point which I felt was sort of left off the table in your presentation, and I think something that is maybe something that should be of consideration, is sort of maybe more intensification of residential within the service portion of town. Less urban sprawl, so more accommodation of housing within a higher. The Gibber district is a good example, but it's sort of a premium type building, and I'm wondering if there isn't a move towards more intensification of residential in the downtown. That's number one. The second one, in the on slide 7, you referred to the provincial policy changes addressing 6 areas. And the second one was increased flexibility for rural residential development. We've had a bit of a history recently of giving really serious consideration to residential development or separation of lots in the rural. And my interpretation of that, as it was given at a recent county meeting, was that that allows for more severances in the countryside as part of that increased flexibility, which of course I think flies in the face of land use incompatibilities with food being produced where it needs to be produced. So I'll let you comment on both of those then, please. Thank you.
Through you, Your Worship. Yeah, no, both good questions. So with respect to the intensification, that's certainly something that's intended as part of the as part of the OP update, and it's mandated as part of the county OP update that just put a theoretical out there. Say the town's allocation or projected portion of growth for the county is 5,000 new people over the next 20 years, and the people per household is, say, 2 people per household. So saying we need 2,500 new housing units over the next 20 years. Of that new housing units that we need, the county requires that we essentially have policies that mandate a certain amount be achieved through intensification versus through greenfield, suburban sprawl type development. And so that's something that we can definitely take a look at and make sure that the policies for the downtown area, for example, are supportive of or encouraging of adding residential units, making mixed use developments or intensifying existing sites. Because you're right, that does certainly has a financial impact on the town in terms of making use of existing roads and service networks, et cetera, that are already in place, versus extending roads, extending services further and further out. So it's something that we want to encourage, certainly for multiple reasons. Concern about the rural residential development. It's the provincial policy statements changed from 2014 to 2020, where the current government, I think, wanted to provide flexibility or more flexibility for rural municipalities or predominantly rural municipalities to allow more what they would call, or what provinces call, kind of rural residential development. But that doesn't obligate a municipality to loosen or allow more consents. In fact, some municipalities, for the reasons you identified, have tightened that down. So Prince Edward County, for example, they just completed their OP update last year, and they've actually taken the step of prohibiting any new rural subdivisions, and they reduced the number of consents allowed to 1. And for the very reason that they want to encourage development in the urban areas. So, there's flexibility there, and so the town, certainly that's something we'd be looking for feedback on through this process.
Thank you. Any other council? I'll go to Councillor Johnson, and then I'll go to you, Councillor Pennell.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just wondering, did the Deputy Mayor have a further question on that? I thought I saw his finger pop up. No? Okay. Then I will go ahead with your permission. I know the county is conducting a roads needs study, and I don't know what the timeline is for that. And my question is, are you going to be incorporating that information into our official plan update? And I'm asking because we have only one main artery that runs north and south currently. And as the population grows, there is more and more discussion about needing a second north-south artery. And on top of that, we only have, as a support for the 401 emergency detour route, there are many times when traffic is quite backlogged. And I'm wondering if you're going to be looking at solutions for that.
Your Worship, no, it's a excellent question, and that's certainly something we're looking at. And So I believe the study that you're probably referring to is the environmental assessment that I think the county and the town are collaborating on together, and that's looking at that potential for new north-south road connection south of 401, particularly to the west of Center Street. And that would go into that kind of greenfield fringe area that I referred to as well, to kind of provide services and provide connections to those potential future growth areas. So that's a critical part of when we're looking at where future growth can be accommodated. We're definitely looking at where existing roads are, and then where future roads are planned to be, to make sure that we're taking advantage of those connections.
Your worship,
Go ahead,
if I
Michael.
could just
Yeah.
add a comment as well. The town's utilities department has certainly piggybacked on that study, and will be undertaking a servicing capacity analysis for that greater area, as Mr. Tao identified. So the study will certainly go hand in hand with our official plan review process, and ensuring that we have enough servicing capacity from a water and sanitary servicing perspective for that area as a whole.
Great. Thank you, Michael. Councillor Pennell.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, Mark, thank you very much for the presentation. Just also with the 2020 provincial policy changes, number 3 point on that slide, number 7, you spoke of enhanced support for affordable and market-based housing. I'm quite sure that everybody at home with that, we're kind of half paying attention as soon as you mentioned that, perked right up. Could you just expand a little bit on that for us, please?
Yeah, so through you, Your Worship, and this is where I'll maybe say enhanced support. I guess what that really means from the province's perspective in the PPS is they have policies that encourage municipalities to do things that provide affordable housing. I would say there's no concrete changes that would all of a sudden make it easier for municipalities to require affordable housing as part of a larger development, or ease requirements for housing to make it easy, to make it all of a sudden more affordable. I think though what the PPS did intend to do, or does do, is encourages municipalities to expand the land supply to not be too restrictive in terms of the amount of land that's available for development, and also to ensure that they're looking far enough ahead in the future in terms of projecting for instead of 10-year land supply, 15-year land supply, so that municipalities aren't caught off guard by having too restrictive of a boundary or too restrictive of a designated area for development. And as we've seen in the last 2 or 3 or more years, all of a sudden development outpaces what anybody projected, and municipalities can't respond fast enough or don't have lands available to accommodate that growth. So it's a bit of a smattering of policies, and just encouraging municipalities to make sure that they are making enough land available so that prices don't get out of hand just because supply has been artificially limited.
Thank you. So just to clarify that, then it's just the province putting some words together, basically saying this is the municipality's issue to deal with.
Yeah, at the provincial policy level, yes, that's effectively what it is.
Great, thank you.
Anything further from council directed to either Mark or Michael? Seeing none, Matthew, I don't know whether you can come on with your camera on. Whoops, there he is. Okay, you moved on my screen. I'm going to let you go ahead. I don't know whether you had comments or questions or some of each. I would just ask that if you are going to make some comments, so I'll give you 10 minutes to speak, and then give us time to answer back. Okay.
Yeah.
And please just direct anything through me, and I'll put you to the right person for that. Oh, sorry. Deputy Mayor Kaiser's waving at me.
Actually, Michael Knobs would like to speak to you, please.
Oh, sorry, Michael, go ahead.
Thank you, Worship. The other individuals that I was referring to previously that plan to attend, they just got back to us and they weren't able to stay this late for the meeting, so they will attend a separate meeting. So we just had
Okay,
Mr.
fine.
King with us tonight.
Yeah, okay, all right, Mr. King, the floor is yours.
I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank you for allowing me to speak. You probably know what I'm going to speak on. I commend the town for the initiative to update the official plan, as I believe it is out of date. I think it was a worthwhile and needed exercise. Probably not a surprise to all that have received my many emails, some might say even rants on the issue, but I'm going to focus on the impact the official plan has had on the ability of Tomlinson to potentially operate a permanent asphalt plant at the quarry. And this won't take 10 minutes. Tomlinson has taken advantage of outdated bylaws and town zoning, and my standard of living has already frankly gone down since they have taken ownership of the quarry. I would like the updated plan to consider the following. The fringe area around the quarry needs to be updated. What is the plan for growth there? If a permanent asphalt plant is situated in the proposed location, there's going to be no opportunity for residential growth because no one is going to want to live anywhere close to there. The community along Palace Road is a neat feature of Napanee, which people like myself, I actually chose to move to Napanee in this area because I think it's such a great area to live in. Don't ruin it by allowing this. From an environmental perspective, I think we all know because we live here, the water runoff from this location is immense in the spring and in heavy rainfall. They're going to say that they have protections in place, but think of all the situations where heavy industries have these protections and there's a 1 in 100-year event that happens and the town is left on the hook to clean up, right? They'll go bankrupt or they'll leave the site and we're left on the hook. The Napanee River is one of our greatest resources of the town. And I think it just takes common sense that it's not a suitable location for a permanent asphalt plant. Stronger, clearer language should be used in the plan to outline a company's responsibility to rehabilitate land that is no longer in use or where site contamination has taken place. Again, we can all think of examples where a town is on the hook after a company goes out of business. Don't let it be a location so close to the heart of downtown. Is change in property value considered when you're changing the plan or allowing zoning amendments? And I'm just going to add a popular argument I hear from people that are for the asphalt plant is that it has to go somewhere, and I'm someone that just doesn't want it in my backyard. Well, there's a difference between having 1 or 2 people's backyards impacted versus like 20% of the town, our newest school, like being so close to the heart of our downtown. This is where the plan comes in, where if you have suitable planning and a location for a heavy industry like this, it can be a benefit to both the town and its residents, right? And I want to make it clear that I am pro-business, I am pro-heavy industry, but it has to make sense. The location has to make sense. And it's just like my mind, I'm kind of blown away that it's actually gotten this far, to be honest. Couple more points and I'm all done. License transfer when selling a quarry. When we purchased our home, I was aware of the location of the quarry. I did my research and understood it to be a locally owned quarry with limited production. The transfer of ownership to Tomlinson has greatly reduced the standard of living in the area. This has already happened, and it's going to continue to happen, and it's even going to be worse if a permanent asphalt plant is located here. And you can ask anyone, like everyone has seen all the signs, right? You can ask anyone in the area, like this is a major issue. On the point of all the studies that they have done, Tomlinson, I'm frankly not interested in living in a minimum standard of living, right? people come to Napanee not to live close to an asphalt plant. Like you can go to, if you want big high rises and heavy industry, you can go to a place like Toronto or something. This is not what Napanee should be about, or at least I didn't think it was. The only other thing I want to say is I think you should seriously consider the language in the plan on portable asphalt plants. If you've actually gotten a look at what they consider a portable asphalt plant, it is huge. The production they can produce out of that is massive. And we've already seen, because they've been running a portable asphalt plant the last couple of years, the impact it has, okay? The only other way that might make sense to look at this is if the quarry didn't exist at the moment and a new proposal was coming to the town to put a new quarry and a new permanent asphalt plant in the location they're proposing, I think they'd be laughed off the street, okay? So in closing, I think the official plan has contributed to the situation the town now sees itself in with the Tomlinson zoning amendment application for a permanent asphalt plant. I guess the one good thing about Tomlinson is that it has highlighted the need to have a robust plan, vision for our town, so this sort of thing doesn't happen in the future. And I also just want to stress that I'm not interested in a council that just votes on this issue. Use your platform, get this issue in front of the public at this point, right? We need to know before you vote on it where you stand, and you can see I feel strongly on it, and I don't usually do this, but I think it's a super important issue that's coming up, and the town plan kind of ties into everything. So I really appreciate you giving me the time, and I just want to give a shout out to the snow clearing folks. I think you've done an excellent job.
Thanks, Matthew. They certainly have been using all the equipment that we've got and that we need. Either Mark or Michael, are there anything that you'd like to maybe follow up on from what Matthew has said as to how our official plan will affect what can or could be done, or what restrictions or what allowances or even what avenues we would have to either be pro or con?
Through your
Go ahead,
worship, I'll start off. If Michael has anything to add, he can follow me. So thank you, first of all, Mr. King, for your comments, and certainly we're involved with helping the town in reviewing the Tomlinson application, so aware of the concerns and the impacts, and also with our own experience as planners. We've dealt with such applications elsewhere in other municipalities. And so I want to kind of limit my comments to the scope of the OP review. So first off, I guess I'll say we're in a position, municipalities are in a position where there's a provincial mandate to do multiple things. One of them is to protect aggregate resources such as sand and gravel, and to accommodate, I guess, needed industrial uses. But municipalities are also tasked with planning where land uses should go and where they're appropriately located to avoid conflict between land uses. In some situations, there are aggregate resources such as pits and quarries that are located within urban boundary areas. And then the municipality has to make decisions about how to allow or not allow those uses to operate or continue, where there's existing licenses in place and their existing operations. That tends to direct how that use can continue to happen. But then municipalities, through their official plan, need to ensure that the uses around those operations are appropriate and that conflicts are avoided wherever possible. So I think as part of this OP review, that area of the town, there's some industrial designations. There is the designation for the quarry. And there's a huge fringe area, as you pointed out, around there where the town is going to be deciding or have to look at, are we designating that for uses now, or is it going to continue to be a future development area? There's an application, if you're perhaps aware, to the south of Highway 2, next to the trail or next to the rail line. So approximately 300 lot subdivision there. So I think that area of Highway 2 is facing pressure for change, is facing pressures for kind of more urbanization, I'll call it. And so I think that's going to create potentially, or has the potential to create conflicts with things like a quarry or some of the older industrial uses in the area. So we are going to be looking at that as part of this OP review to make sure that we're avoiding problems rather than creating them. So.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Mark. Michael, did you wish to add anything to that?
Nothing further beyond what Mr. Tao has identified. I will just note that the town's Bang the Table page for the Tomlinson asphalt plant is now live. So all materials associated with that application are available for public consumption through that medium. And we will also be holding the public meeting associated with that application on February 24th, starting at 5 p.m. Virtually, registration is required. More details are available through the Bang the Table page. And at that time, further public comment can be made beyond what has already been submitted in writing to the municipality. And at that time, council can make comments, ask further questions for clarification, etc. So if we're able, it would probably be best to separate the two discussions, focus this discussion on the OP review process and leave the public meeting for later in the month of February.
Yeah, Matthew, if it is related to the OP, I'm happy to entertain your statements, but if it is related to the actual Tomlinson zoning and so on, then I would ask that will go to a separate meeting, and which I know you'll be part of, but I will allow you to speak. Yeah.
I actually thought I kind of tied in the plan pretty good there,
Yeah, you did. You did a good job.
I just want to say before I leave, and I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I think the Bang the Table and how that engagement is great. I've already gone on it, but I honestly think unless you engage the public, and like the majority of the public is not going to go to the website. Like, let's just all, unless you actively engage them to go there. So you got to find a way, because I think there's great information on there. You got to find a way to get them engaged in there. And like, you have the platform to do this. Thank you.
And we'll make every effort. And please never apologize for wanting to be involved. Thank you for being so respectful and polite. It's nothing that's easy for any of us. Thank you again, Matthew.
Thank you.
So we've had no one else come in that had asked to speak this evening, either Jessica or Brianna. And are there any questions that council wishes to put forward at this time? Seeing none, I would entertain that resolution to adjourn then the public meeting. Moved by Councillor McCormack, seconded by Councillor Pennell. Thank you for all involved. Thank you, Mark. Thank you for your team, and thank you to Mr. King for coming in to join us this evening. All in favor of the motion to adjourn? Not the meeting, just the public meeting. Motion is carried. Thank you. Presentations. We've got a presentation. We do have someone coming in. I think that Mr. Pinsent is going to present the introduction, but I think there was also someone that was coming in to speak to us. Was there, John?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. And I think Jesse from Optimus is just in the process of doing that. If you will allow me, Your Worship, Council, just a couple of seconds before Jesse gets loaded up. We have awarded the contract for the strategic plan formulation for the town of Greater Napanee for this year. This is the kickoff meeting. Staff have had a couple of interactions with the company so far in terms of what we're looking for and how we want to frame this. I do want to state there's a lot of work going on this year. Michael just talked about the official plan. You've got now a strategic plan being presented. there's a fire master plan that's being consulted on Bang the Table. So we will, as we get through this and for the community, there's going to be a lot of opportunities for you to have your voice within the town of Greater Napanee on a various bunch of subjects. What I've asked staff to do, and we're going to start this tomorrow, is trying to frame all of these different pieces and how they interrelate to one another and where it's most appropriate that the community interact with these consultants doing this work. So I want to make sure that people understand that. And the last thing we're going to do is we're going to make sure that from a staff perspective, we'll come back to council and we'll try and synchronize all of this important work that we're doing and show you all of the different pieces over the course of the year, because I think they're all important in different respects. So
Perfect,
with that, I will hand it over to Jesse from Optimus to walk through his presentation.
Thank you.
Great.
Welcome, Jesse.
Thank you. And thank you, John. Great to see everybody. Thank you for the opportunity today. And actually, I am going to share my screen so that you can see my presentation here, and it should be coming up in a moment here. Can you see that screen yet?
Yes. Yeah, we can,
Yes.
Jesse. Thank you.
Perfect. And now let me just change this so that I can see all of you again. Great. Great. So as I was saying, thank you very much for the opportunity this evening. So my name is Jesse Burns. I'm a senior manager at Optimus SBR, which is obviously a firm working with John and team to start the planning process. And what I wanted to do today was introduce myself and the process that we will be going through for the strategic plan. As John already mentioned, we still have some planning activities to iron out with respect to various components, particularly related to the engagement. We'll get there in a moment. But what I wanted to do was introduce the project, introduce the strategic planning exercise, talk a little bit about what our approach will look like, what to kind of expect as we go through this process, had a little bit of a conversation on some of the stakeholders that we really think we need to be engaging, and we'll talk a little bit about timelines. And along the lines, if there are any questions or comments, happy to take those. Otherwise, we'll certainly pause at the end. In terms of where to really start, just wanted to obviously begin with a quick overview of strategy and make sure that we're all on the same page in terms of what we are talking about when we're referring to a strategic plan for the municipality. And really what we are emphasizing here is a document that will allow us to really set and establish the directions and the priorities of the community and of the municipality, and articulate those clearly in a way that will allow us to then make decisions based on what those desired directions and priorities are, allow us to be more proactive in terms of where we're driving towards and what we want to achieve. We'll want to make sure that we're able to align our activities and our resources. We know that we don't have unlimited people or financial resources, so we want to make sure that we're using those smartly, and a strategy helps us to make sure that we are prioritizing those resources, and ultimately will also allow us to have that common and consistent messaging around where the municipality is headed in the future and what we need to be doing, what we need to be focusing on to achieve that vision moving forward. So really, it's that roadmap that provides direction and aligns the activities for the municipality moving forward. We'll start to get into this as we go through the entire process of developing a strategy, but ultimately we're working towards a framework that will allow us to articulate the vision of the municipality and what we want to be achieving into the future. We'll then start to get more granular in terms of the mission and how the town is able to achieve that vision, what those success factors, or you might call them pillars or key areas of focus, what those are that need and what needs to be in place to be able to achieve that vision. And then based on that, we'll start to get into some of the activities, the initiatives, and the resource requirements associated with implementing a strategy. And I'll speak to that in a moment as well, because while this isn't necessarily a business plan or an operational plan, we certainly want to make sure it's a strategy that it has concrete components and has concrete actions behind it and is not just something on paper. Getting a little bit more granular in terms of what this means for the town of Greater Napanee and how we started to articulate the planning process and the engagement that we'll be going through over the next few months. Working with John and team and through our proposal, we've developed a mission and some success factors for the project success for the engagement itself. And really what we are doing here is we are working with the town's leadership to facilitate that development of that actionable multi-year strategic plan. And we'll want to make sure that throughout that we're reflecting and responding to stakeholder input, as well as trends that we are observing and documenting within the town. And the key there is that we really are facilitating the development of the plan. We are experts in the process and the path that we'll take to get to a strategy, but we will ultimately really be drawing on the expertise and the knowledge of staff and stakeholders council in developing the strategy itself and making sure that it is actionable for the municipality. What that really means in terms of success, and when we look back on this engagement and this process to develop the strategy, the things that we'll want to make sure that we have in place and that we've been able to achieve is, first of all, that clearly articulated vision for the town that will guide us into the longer term, the identification of what the success factors are, or those pillars that we really need to have right in order to support the achievement of that long-term vision. The sort of next level of detail around descriptions of actions and supports that really need to be in place over the short, medium, and longer term to allow us to move towards that vision. And then the ability to measure that. We want to make sure that the plan that we're developing is something that we can measure so that we know that we're making progress in achieving our vision and achieving some of these success factors. And then, of course, throughout the process, we'll want to make sure that we are engaging with and getting buy-in from key stakeholders, members of council, leadership team, as well as internal and external stakeholders, and ensuring that opinions and views and perspectives are understood and incorporated and considered in the development of the strategic plan. In terms of what this looks like and what you can start to expect over the next few months, and again, as I've already mentioned, this is very much an approach that will continue to build the details out in terms of engagement activities and specific activities. But at the highest level, we are starting with a launch and project discovery component of the project, which is also part of which is tonight, where we are setting up and planning through the process, having initial conversations with members of the senior team, as well as this discussion tonight. And we'll also be collecting relevant information, documents, material throughout the process. John alluded to this earlier in terms of just getting a sense of what else is underway and under development across the municipality that we need to be aware of as we go into this process. We'll move into stakeholder engagement, and that will include the formal development of a stakeholder engagement plan, where we will articulate exactly who we are going to be engaging with, how, and for what purpose. And I'll talk a bit about that on the next slide. And that information will be used to develop and to support planning workshops that we'll conduct, where we will go through and we'll develop the mission and the vision. We'll develop those success factors and action planning. And, again, happy to go through those sessions as we get into the development of the project, and then ultimately drafting the strategy, making sure that we're presenting back to key stakeholders and finalizing the plan as well. I alluded a little bit to the stakeholder engagement phase of the project, and it's a key part of our current state and understanding what exists today and where our perspectives for the future. There's a number of groups that we will want to engage. So in addition to tonight's council meeting, we will want to set up individual or smaller group discussions with members of council, where we'll go through current priorities, potential future considerations, highlight any feedback you receive from the community. We will be having additional discussions with the town's leadership and leadership of the different departments within the town, again, to understand current strengths and challenges, trends that are emerging through out in the municipality. We will want to have conversations and sessions with staff as well, frontline staff who work with and interact with the community, for example, on a daily basis, and understand perspectives there. Externally, of course, we will want to have a number of focused sessions with members of the public and focus groups, and we're happy to receive feedback on key stakeholders that we think need to be included in this group, but certainly business groups, partners in service delivery, users of some of your services are all groups that we would likely look to engage with in a focused manner. And then the community at large, and leveraging some of the online tools that you have implemented already with respect to Bang the Table is certainly something that we will be looking to do. And again, working with John and team to ensure that all of that outreach and engagement with the public is done in a way that reflects and is aligned to other activities that the municipality is undertaking as well, so that there's not confusion from the public perspective. As we go through the project, we ultimately are looking to have this plan in place in late summer into August. So really the next few months are when we will have considerable engagement. So we've dedicated an ample amount of time to the stakeholder engagement phase of the project, and we'll really look to start that mid-February, and then continue into certainly late April, early May, before we'll go through a series of planning workshops, and then starting to draft the plan itself in mid to late summer. And as I said, look to have a plan in place for the end of the summer. In addition to myself, other team members that you'll see working on this engagement are listed here, and we'll be introducing the team as we go through the engagement. But you'll see a lot of myself, at least for the early days, certainly. But given the time, I won't go into too much detail here, but that's really the very quick overview, and I flew through some of that just in the interest of time. But I did want to certainly introduce the planning activity, some of the key steps along the process, and I am happy to take any questions on the process, and I'm also happy for any input on key stakeholders that council absolutely thinks that we should be consulting with earlier in this process. And certainly, as I mentioned, part of our process is to develop that stakeholder engagement plan that will outline our suggestions on stakeholders, but I always like to put that question to council earlier. So I'll turn it back to the chair really for any questions or comments on the process.
Thank you, Jesse. As council, do you have any questions or suggestions as to the key stakeholders that Jesse probably should be going to, or just questions on the process itself? The deputy mayor and I have been through this to maybe not as large an extent, but this is probably a great time to be doing this with so many changes coming about with staffing and perhaps even council. So any questions directed toward Jesse from any of the council members? None. Terry, go ahead, please. Yeah. And then
Jesse, if you could unshare your screen so that we could see everybody, please.
My apologies, I will do that.
Thank you, John. That's what I was going to suggest. Yeah.
So Terry, did you have a comment as well?
I'll just mention, thank you, Your Worship. I mean, it's a fairly aggressive timeline for the project. It looks like we should have this thing wrapped up by September, according to the documents I'm reading. Do you anticipate any slowdowns in it at all, sir, or is this timeline a fairly obtainable type of timeline?
Yeah, so through the chair, it's certainly an obtainable timeline in our perspective. There is a good amount of time for engagement in February through to April and May. And if there is a need to conduct additional engagement, there's certainly, in our perspective, some buffer time in the planning workshop phase, where if we do need to find time for whatever reason, if sessions are not able to occur, we are comfortable that we would be able to find that time there. So from our perspective, we're very comfortable with the timelines.
Perfect. Thank you. As far as stakeholders go, I think it's just important that we reach out to as many members of the public as we can, from both our community and maybe our surrounding communities, even, as it may affect them as well. Both hopefully virtually, but more importantly, if we can do it face to face or in public, I think it'd be a great time to deal directly with the public that way. So thank you for your presentation.
I'll go to the deputy mayor. I see our CAO has come on. John, did you wish to speak to this before?
No,
I'm
fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, deputy mayor.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. Two things on the stakeholder engagement, and just picking up on Matthew King's comment from earlier. I have a neighbor who isn't very comfortable online, but they know about things online and they can see things, but they can't always manipulate the pages. If we were able to create a form that could be printed off, he often comes to me and asks me to print things off for him, and then I give it back to him. That would give them a form that they could then fill out and drop off at a town hall or one of our buildings. Just another avenue to collect information that starts on the web portal, but ends up being paper that can be collected. And unfortunately, that leads to some burden on somebody to enter or take that information in a manual way. But just another avenue, I think, that maybe is appropriate given the broad demographics of our community. My question, though, really comes back to the timeline. And I'm struggling, and so I'm asking, maybe through you to the clerk, when do we fall into lame duck with the election on October 24th? I know that September is getting tight. If we were to have something that this council contributed greatly to, but couldn't ultimately accept or approve, I'm not saying it's lost, but it could then just fall on a shelf until the new council comes in, and I don't know what's going to happen to that. So what's the implications of this and this timeline running into right up close to an election period of time?
Right. So, sorry, Jessica.
I was going to say, through your worship, the lame duck period, our last meeting that's definitely clear of that will be in June, although special meetings could certainly be called in July. Normally, we don't have any meetings scheduled for July, but this might be a good year to do that. Technically, under the Municipal Act, your lame duck period would not restrict you from this type of work, although it is sort of best practice not to set major policy during that time. But it is not something that is covered by legislation.
If I may through the chair to the deputy mayor, and we've had this discussion at our last meeting with Jesse, and I think it's why we want to get to the consultation. We want to get to making sure we hear, especially council's input, because I think as you go through the formulation of your strategic plan, the tail end of this is, Jesse, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's taking all the input and it's putting it into a coherent strategy, and it's formulating with some of the performance measures, and make sure that we as staff can then take that into formulating business plans in subsequent years. I think if we front end loaded the consultation hearing from council well enough in the lame duck, I think I'm confident we can get you what you need, such that council can rest assured that you've had your stamp on this. Jesse, can you add to that?
Yeah, yes, certainly. So I would say, just and to close the loop on actually the first comment from the deputy mayor, and then I'll speak to that directly. The first comment around alternative source or methods for participation in paper-based surveys. Absolutely, it's a common approach. Whether those are surveys that so we could print out and provide back, or would be available through municipal offices. Obviously, COVID's had some restrictions to that, but nonetheless, absolutely an approach that we typically consider, and we'll work with John and team to make sure that that is implemented. With respect to the timing, I think John kind of stole the words out of my mouth based on our previous conversation. What we will absolutely be able to do, and what we are planning to do, is first of all have that engagement early on in the process with council. And as we get into the development of the strategy after the early sessions in, say, late May, we will be in a state to have I'll say a framework, a draft of, perhaps not the narrative of the strategy with the descriptions, but certainly a draft of key elements that are emerging, themes, trends that we're absolutely able to have a discussion with council, so you can see the input that has been provided. So that's certainly something that we can plan into the overall project plan.
Thank you. So council, we approved going forward with this, and I think now we've heard what it is. So I guess it's and again, it's sort of looking at the timelines for this evening. We do a recommendation before, but I think also it's going to behoove all of us to make sure that the stakeholder groups are aware and maybe forward them in. I don't know whether it goes directly through Jesse or somebody could help me as to when groups contact us, what's their best reaching out point to make sure that they're involved in this. John, I see you're ready to answer that.
Yeah, I think Nathan's going to play a critical part in this, and he sort of is going to become the conduit between the municipality and Jesse. We're going to sit down and talk tomorrow at our senior leadership team meeting and figure out how we sort of stitch together the communication, how data flows, and to make sure that this is an easy process for people to take part in.
Perfect. Thank you. With that, council, we do have a recommend. Councillor Pennell, did you wish to speak to this?
Thank you, Worship, through you. I just have a question as to with the timelines that are proposed on this plan. How would our plan capture some of the late deliverables that we're looking for, much like a transportation study or a recreational plan, that sort of thing that will be drawn out a little bit longer? How would a strategic plan that is going to be capturing what's the town of Napanee is going to look like for the future, how is that going to work in on this with this time frame that we have?
Yeah, so through the chair, I can respond to that to start. At this point, we do want to have that conversation with or additional conversations with John and team to fully understand all of the other work that is being done and timelines for that. So that we still do need to go through in terms of the early days of the process. To answer the question as directly as I can, there's really two elements that we will want to try and capitalize on. One will be consultations, engagement with the community that are specific to some of those other initiatives. We, where it makes sense, would like to see what we can leverage from that consultation. So if there's consultations on a recreation plan or on other documents that are going concurrently to this, certainly we'll look to incorporate what may make sense into this strategy. Deliverables, activities that are a bit beyond the duration that we've outlined here, where we maybe won't be able to do that. I think that at that point, again, the strategy is a level up from some of these detailed plans, and certainly I think that we will be able to understand the direction of the municipality at the highest level and understand the need for a lot of these documents. And in some cases, the strategy may be able to actually inform and lead some of those other deliverables as well. It will go back both ways. So as best we can, we will look to leverage information that is being developed and produced for some of those other documents to inform the strategy.
Great, thank you.
Okay, council, we do have a recommendation to go with this, unless there are any more questions. Do I have someone who is willing to move this to keep the process going forward? Councillor McCormack moving, Councillor Pennell seconding. Any further comments or questions? All in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. And Jesse, thank you very much. And I know that you'll be in touch with us. And I'm sure that after tonight's presentation, we'll get somewhere to funnel the information back to you. So thank you very much for all your work.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So presentations, we're through. Deputations, Sky Pixel. Do we have someone that's coming on to speak to this? Yes, I can see somebody hooking up. I see Kyle, and I've got Mike down here at the bottom of my. Let me get back to the right spot in my agenda. This working from 2 or 3 screens is a little much.
No problem.
And I've got a cat that's just about to scream, so please, I'm sorry, I'll apologize. And okay, here we go. Okay, who's going to start this presentation? Kyle or Mike? Which way?
I can lead it, Your Worship.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Go ahead then, please.
Should I just go ahead and share my screen?
Yes, you can. Yeah, as long as when you're done, so that when we get to questions, if you would unshare your screen so we can see each other, please.
Yeah, I've been watching for a while now, so I've seen.
I'll bet you have been. At least you don't have to drive home.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see here. Of course, there's technical issues. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yep, good, thank you.
Okay, so yes, thank you very much, Your Worship and members of council. I'm Kyle McCutcheon, one of the founders of Sky Pixel Billboards. The other person on the call is my partner, Michael Novak. So we're a digital billboard company. We're experienced in obtaining necessary permits, building permits, and also handling the sales at a local and national level. So the proposal we're putting in front of you today is working with you and partnering with you to install a 14 by 48 double-sided digital billboard facing the 401 highway at 16 McPherson Drive. The footprint is relatively small on the ground. I just told you about the aerial footprint, but on the ground it's about a 5 by 5 footprint on the property. As far as funding goes to cover the cost of the project, we will handle all of the funding for the digital billboards and the structure, any insurance that's required, electricity, all of those things that require finances, which is a value, pending the cost of steel going up and down of approximately $500,000. The opportunity for Greater Napanee is we would be looking at a term of 15 years plus an option to renew for another 15. We would be providing Greater Napanee with an annual lease for the billboard property of $45,000. And that would have an annual lease increase of 2% per year. And one thing that a lot of the municipalities that we've worked with or that we're currently in discussions with is one community messaging ad slot. So Michael will walk you guys through kind of what that looks like with some of our renderings. But it's a great way for not only revenue, but to get messaging out on a fairly busy highway leading in and out of Greater Napanee. We have also reviewed the bylaws that are currently in place, and our understanding is that we are good and within all of them, minus a variance that will be required for the larger billboard itself of 14 by 48 double-sided. Right now, the current bylaw is quite small. And in order to get up to, make it feasible for us from an economic perspective and to get up to kind of standard with other municipalities, we would have to increase it quite substantially. But as you will see, the impact to, safety in the community and stuff like that is quite minimal. Mike, do you want to take over from here?
Sure. So this is a rendering of the project. And one of the benefits for the town is this does become an asset for community outreach. It's a good way to get in touch with the public in terms of maybe some of the branding for the community. We would provide Amber Alerts and up-to-date information and so forth. So we would be providing one ad slot with this digital billboard just for the town, in addition to the yearly lease. And this is something we can work with, marketing and so forth to create a marketing campaign and, bring awareness to the region's benefits. And this is dynamic advertising as well. So we would be changing throughout the seasons and possibly throughout the week as well to keep it up to date and so forth. So now this next slide is a light study. One of the things that come up is safety concerns. We are working in many other municipalities and with the MTOs awareness of this, and we do follow their strict guidelines. One of the concerns is light pollution. Now, that's typically at night. I think there's a misconception that, this is Las Vegas or the Gardner or so forth. These digital displays actually dim down to 4%. And the graph on the right-hand side is in foot candles. We use foot candles because that shows the distribution of light on an object. And a good reference point for that is an overhead highway light produces 1 foot candle. So there is a distance from the digital billboard. The highest foot candles that it would produce is about 25% of 1 foot candle. So 25% of 1 overhead highway light is what it does produce at night. So just to clarify some misconception, we would have to be over a foot candle to add on to ambient light. There are some overhead lights in the hotel property to the east here, which would, essentially overpower the light that we're producing. Going eastbound. Going westbound, there's obviously the fields and the lights in the soccer field, and it would be substantially less nits and foot candles than those. So maybe we can go into those a little more details if there's questions, but.
Yeah, so essentially what we're looking here for today is the blessing to move forward for a variance. And we will continue to work with the MTO to make sure that from a safety perspective that, we're in correspondence with them. And yeah, just take the next step that we would need to do in order to get, I guess, closer to making this a reality.
Okay, thank you. Council, questions to these gentlemen? I'll go with Councillor Pennell and Councillor McCormack.
Thank you, Worship. I actually have quite a list here, so I'll probably have to go a few times. I'll just ask one and let John go. But I heard that the hydro, you guys will be taking care of the hydro as an ongoing, not just during the construction phase.
Correct.
Okay. And my second question was, how high is this unit going to be?
So it's kind of 30 feet Hagel, so height above ground level would be ideal, but we didn't want to, I guess, put ourselves in a corner in terms of that. We wanted to have an open discussion, but that would be the ideal height.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll go to Councillor McCormack, please.
Thank you, Worship. Couple of questions. So let's say we enter into a 15-year lease and do not renew. What happens at the end of 15 years?
Yep. So according to the contract, we are responsible for repairing the property as it was before we entered the contract. So the billboard would be removed and the ground would be repaired.
All right, and then if I may, Your Worship, in addition to that, let's say we did go 15 years and then renewed for another 15 years. Are these signs currently, how would I put it, not going to be outdated in 20 years? And then we have to look at this for another number of years after that. I mean, we have no control really as to the condition of the sign itself.
Sure. So I think what monitors that is the advertisers. And we're not selling any advertisements, to national brands, at Tim Hortons, so forth, with poor looking displays. So this will be replaced at typically year 12 to 15, depending on the health of the display, and updated with what is in the market at that time. It needs to be competitive. If it does get outdated, I mean, we would be losing. I mean, it's a significant down payment for us and ongoing yearly payments. And if it's not attractive, we're losing on it. So it would be updated for that reason.
Okay, and then thank you. One last question, if I may, just where can we see one of these signs to in person?
Sure. Yep. I think we can follow up maybe with a list of locations in the area, Belleville, Kingston, and so forth. But yep, we can definitely provide a list.
All right. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks.
I'll go to, thank you. I'll go to Councillor Norrie, and then did you have your hand up as well, Councillor Pennell and Councillor Richardson? Okay, Councillor Norrie, Councillor Pennell, Councillor Richardson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a quick question following up on Councillor McCormick. Is that one of your signs on the Lincoln Alexander Parkway in Hamilton?
It is not, but that is a digital billboard. Absolutely.
That's the same type?
Out front media. Yep, absolutely.
Okay, it's very good looking. Okay, thank you.
Yep, okay, I appreciate that.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Pennell, and then it'll be Councillor Richardson.
Okay, thank you. Through you, Worship. Can we talk about the location here for a little bit and what's going to be on the sign? So I guess my last part about what's going to be on the sign, as it's going to be a V shaped on both sides, will both sides be representing the same ad at the same time?
No, there'll be independent content on both sides.
Okay. What made you pick that location of where it is? Because we have two directions going here, and we have two entrances off of the 401 to come into Greater Napanee. So I mean, so going westbound, by the time they see the sign, there's no exit until you get to Deserona Road. So I'm just wondering what factors into your decision to ask to have it put in this place?
Sure. I think the sight lines are strong at this location. It does help that it is municipal property. Obviously going for the variance and hopefully providing you with a lease, but I think it's the sight lines are strong, and we are working with the MTO and certain aspects, and we do have to be spaced from overhead signage on the highway. So we are restricted in that aspect as well. And then they also ask that it's not too rural, too far away from the town where there's a contrast with the light, the ambient light. So it was kind of a sweet spot, but yep, there are other locations, but. Yep.
Okay. And just back to the what ifs. What if your project cannot be supported with advertising from our town? What happens there in your year 5 or your year 4 or whatever? What happens?
Yep. Yeah, it's a good question. I think we would have definitely a lot of local clients, but as well as national clients. Obviously the annual average traffic count is decently high, I believe 45,000. And so that would support some national ads as well. And that's something where we would do our due diligence before this development to make sure we have that demand, which we do feel strongly about. But if it did go yeah, if it did go off the rails, I mean, Kyle, do you want to maybe jump in there?
Yeah, I would just say that it's not always, obviously, it's an opportunity for local businesses in Greater Napanee, but if you look at some of the advertising that takes place in Toronto, and you got Niagara Falls advertising in Oakville or advertising all the way in Toronto. So I think there's the majority will be kind of either national or Greater Napanee, but it's not like we and we hope that continues, and it's not just after year 5, but there are other locations surrounding and within a decent range that would be looking to target the Greater Napanee community as well, and other people that are just traveling through Greater Napanee through the 401 that they'd want to capture their attention.
And one last thing on that too, this is a part of a network of billboards across the province that we also have in the region close by. So it would be more of a network that some of the advertisers are buying into as well. So that does support it.
Thank you. Councillor Pennell, if I could just let somebody else get a question in, and then I'll come back to you if I could. Councillor Richardson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just very briefly, I'm assuming you have some forms of contracts or something with the MTO that the sign could be used for traffic delays or traffic road conditions and things like that.
No, we do not. That is something, I mean, we're working closely with them, but they will not be utilizing it for that.
Okay, and just briefly, I mean, obviously, we don't want any type of advertising that will bring the community into ill light. I guess you guys are going to be very approachable with respect to if there's something that goes up there that's on towards our community, it can be rectified fairly quickly.
Absolutely, yep, and that's something where we risk the permitting with the MTO and any inappropriate advertisements, but also within the lease agreement, there is a schedule where we have all restricted advertisements, industries, and so forth. So, if there's obviously anything inappropriate is listed in there to start, but if there are some, certain industries that you thought were maybe inappropriate that aren't so obvious, that can go into the lease as well.
No, perfect. Thank you.
And I'll just add to that, Your Worship, is that that's kind of part of the process as well here is, if it becomes very restrictive, then it makes it restrictive economically for us. So in no way, shape, or form am I saying that are we going to have profanity or anything that's of ill will to the community. But as you could imagine too, like we do have some people that we approach that restrict almost everything, and that doesn't work either. So that's kind of why that's in that agreement up front, so that we're not coming, you guys aren't coming to us down the road saying, hey, we didn't want this, or this was never the intention. With that being said, there's always going to be something where there's a new industry that pops up, like, cannabis or something like that, where we're absolutely open to having that conversation with you and making sure that, we're staying good standing.
No, that's, sorry. I'm just going to say, no, that's great. And it's pretty good idea, and it's a very low risk, high reward, I think, for the community. So thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Pennell, if you have some more questions, and then if you could give us one more, and then I'll go to Councillor Johnson, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, what my comments were was a follow-up to what was being said. So I think that the break is kind of taken away from it, but I just wanted to get my head around it, that the national brands that you'll be advertising may not necessarily be available in our town. And also you might be advertising different towns or different products that aren't available here. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, I mean, I think it would be, from the advertiser's perspective, and when we're placing advertising across our network, if it's, by Ford or something like that, and, just for example, I know you guys will, but if you don't have a Ford dealership, it may not, likely the advertiser is not going to want to advertise there. They're going to want to advertise something that has a direct result, and something that they can track as well, to see that, their ad dollars are turning into results. As far as pulling something that, that they'd have to go to, I mean, potential tourism could be of neighboring cities and stuff like that. I'm not sure, but kind of have to take that as a case by case, I guess.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, gentlemen, for the presentation. You answered the questions I had with regards to luminescence right at the outset. The only other one I had was with regards to what would be your projected number of ads per day, and how often do they repeat a day, and how long do they stay on the screen for? And I'm sure this is calculated very finely according to how quickly somebody drives by.
Absolutely. And that has not been confirmed just yet. We do need, MTO will have the last say on that. Typically, potentially about 8 slots that are rotating. Now, that's not to say that they're always sold out. The industry typically has about a 70% occupancy on that. And those would go, maybe 8 seconds per rotation or per ad. So now there is a chance the MTO pushes that up to 10 seconds or so forth, but that is in the wheelhouse.
It will be static though. No animation or anything like that, static images. And you're never going to see it just like flicker like one. It's going to have a pace to it that's slow enough that it's not very distracting.
Excellent. Thank you.
Any other questions from anyone? Okay, I just have a couple. Do you have other contracts and sales with other municipalities along the 401 corridor?
It's to be honest with you, we do not. All the other locations are private properties. They're just more advantageous in the other municipalities, but we are working with those municipalities to get a similar approval.
Okay. How long have you had this venture going, and how many do you have placed along the 401 or any of the 400s?
So we've been around for 7 years, Your Worship. And we've started off as a fairly boutique company where we represented a lot of other digital billboards, which was up to around 15 or 20. And now we have started to develop our own, and have looked at this opportunity with the MTO. We have 0 boards on the 400 series highway, and most companies do. Because this is never really been allowed before. Anything that you have seen in by the airport or stuff like that is a very special case. And so it's not that it's just because it's not possible normally. So this is kind of a new thing.
Okay, thank you. Council's wishes here. I mean, if we move forward, the next step would be, without having looked at any kind of a contract or anything, these gentlemen then would want to go to the Committee of Adjustments for a variance, which is not cheap. Is there anything that council wishes to see before we ask them to go forward with any more work on their part? Or are there any, I don't want to get into studies because we study everything to death sometimes, but this is an important decision. And I don't want it to say, please go on down the road to Kingston. So I'd want that put in the contract. Go ahead, Councillor McCormack, and then I'll go to Deputy Mayor.
Well, thank you, Worship. I would like to see this go further. I think it's a good opportunity. One of the recent studies that we have done identified the lack of signage for Greater Napanee on the 401, and I mean, these signs can have a major impact. So you know, by us doing our due diligence and our staff doing what they do in this particular kind of case, I'd like to see it come back to us and hopefully it all works out.
Okay, I'll go to Deputy Mayor Kaiser and then I'll entertain a resolution to see which way we're going on this. Deputy Mayor, please.
Thank you, Worship. Two things. First off, later in the agenda, item 12.2, we're talking about this as far as whether we're going to refer it to the Committee of Adjustment or not. So I just wanted to not get too far ahead of ourselves because we have an opportunity for a staff report later. Secondly, I agree with what Councillor McCormack just said. And, you know, one of the things that came into mind during the discussion was the Bay of Quinte marketing board that we've signed on with and things like this. And the county has been doing a lot of natural LNA advertising and looking at billboards as well. There's lots of opportunity here that we should be supporting. But I think I have concerns about the intensity and brightness, not just about the ambient light and what it lights on the ground, but as a driver, I heard the comment about light dimming down to as little as 4%. But if you turn and look at that board and it's 11 o'clock at night and it's got the Greater Napanee logo up there, which is 95% white, that's an intense little bright spot to look at as you're navigating what's otherwise a fairly dark part of the province as far as the roads. Recognizing there's ambient light around the town right there, but still, I'm not sure what agency or authority has any comments to make about that, but if there's any sort of reports, if Sky Pixel could share with us some sort of more third-party reports or assessments of the light intensity and anything else that might go along with that sort of thing. You made the comment that it hasn't been done before, so that begs the question, why? Maybe it just hasn't yet. Maybe there's a reason. And so I guess I want to see that answer before we proceed any further. And I would entertain another visit, perhaps closer to 7 o'clock at a future time, but I'll save that comment for later. But anyways, I would entertain talking about this further. I don't think we're ready to make a decision maybe just yet without some more information.
Go ahead, Mr. McCutcheon, and then Councillor Pennell, I'll come to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, just to answer to that. So just to clarify, just very quickly, it has been done. There are billboards on the 400 series highway. It's just never, there's never been an opportunity to open up, I guess, to private lands and even, town-owned land. So, I think we can definitely pull that for you, because just drive down the Gardner, there's, that's our Las, that's, Ontario's Las Vegas. And there's some other ones on the 407 that are on CN Rail property and stuff like that. So.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Pennell.
Thank you, Worship, through you. Did we talk about what advertising costs would look like? Because as I'm thinking more and more of this and thinking more of the national brands and what we were talking about earlier about advertising, whether it would even be feasible for a company in the town of Napanee to buy advertising to benefit our town or any of our companies that are in town. So I'm just wondering about that before we go on, and we're talking about how we need more advertising to attract people to our town. I'm just wondering if it's feasible for them, or is it just going to be all national brands?
Absolutely. Yep, I can definitely answer that. So yes, it is definitely affordable if you look at the cost per mile or whatever metric you want to look at in terms of the costs per eyeballs. So if we look at it versus digital media, print media. It is one of the cheaper mediums per audience that there are. So small businesses would absolutely benefit from this. Another thing that digital billboards provide is we can actually divide an ad slot into two. So if there are two small businesses within the area that couldn't afford a full ad, they would rotate on and off per rotation. So there's a lot of flexibility in that regards. In terms of being affordable, and maybe that's something we can follow up with, showing the ad rates as well in comparison. Provide a little more insight.
Great, thank you.
Council, I'm going to make a suggestion here because I know that there's some interest out there, but I think there are some things that we need to get answers for before we ask these gentlemen to go to the Committee of Adjustments and spend some dollars. That it may get thrown back to them that we're going to need these things anyway. From something that the Deputy Mayor said about having concerns about the light problems, putting that size of light, and I'm no expert, but there sure is a big difference between the Gardner Expressway and that location. I mean, it's going to stand out like a sore thumb. You're going to be able to see it from the International Space Station right there. The affordability of advertisers for our area that Councillor Pennell brought up. We want to make sure that it's going to be within even naturally LNA and Bay of Quinte Mutual, Bay of Quinte tourism, just the affordability and what the contract looks like, and what one of these things looks like sitting out in the middle. Like, could it go across the road? I'm worried about the effect on our soccer field and so on there. I'm worried about the effect of I personally am worried about the effect with the hotel and the motel. Not against it. I think it sounds great, but I think we need a lot more information. But Council, I need to know your wishes, which way you want to go on here, so that these gentlemen have a direction, please. Someone ready to throw something out there to get a seconder to move it forward. Councillor McCormack.
Thank you, Your Worship. Maybe we could make a motion that we ask for more investigation and have a staff report come back to us with a recommendation.
And the information would include light pollution. I'm not going to call it pollution. I don't want to say that word, okay? But the effects of the lighting, what the contract would look like, the affordability, and examples of where you have them. I think the concept is good. All the normal things that we need to know.
Reference checks and that. And to give the company time to look into it further as well.
Yeah. So Councillor McCormack is making that motion. Councillor Johnson, you're seconding it. Any further conversation on it, gentlemen? It isn't that we're not liking it. It's just that we don't want to be guinea pigs. It sounds like it's really good, but all I can think of is Pedro south of the border, and these things are going to be all over the place. And I know it's a little bit different.
Yep.
I have a mover and a seconder. Any further comment from council on this? If not, all in favor of the motion. Motion is carried. Thank you very much, gentlemen. And I'm sorry that it was so late. We seem to like these midnight marauders for some reason, but that's the way that it is in the land today. Thank you very much for bringing.
No problem at all. Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you.
Okay, man. On to the next deputation, and then we're finally going to go to page 2 of the agenda. Mr. Munro, is Mr. Munro given up on us, or is he going to come in to speak to us? There he comes. Good evening, Ian. How are you this evening? Ian, can you? Oh, here he's connecting. Good evening, Ian. How are you this evening?
Good evening, Your Worship. I'm well. I hope you're all still awake. You people work hard.
Well, it's a big agenda. I'm sorry we're coming back to you so late, but it was a huge committee of adjustments. Who says that municipalities aren't busy these days? I will. You've got a presentation that you want to share the screen with us, I understand.
I will attempt to do that.
Okay, if not, I know you've got Brianna and Jessica who might be able to help on it. It's 9:42. Before we go any farther, so that I don't have to interrupt Mr. Munro, can I have a motion to go beyond 10 o'clock? Because I know that that's what's going to happen shortly. Councillor Richardson, Councillor McCormack, all in favor of that motion? Motion is carried. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt there, Ian, but it just saves me having to step out if you're mid-sentence. And you know that there's a time limit on this anyway. So
absolutely, I don't expect to take 10 minutes. So
good. Thank you so much, Ian. Go ahead, please.
You people are all up to speed on this file. Just want to give you the latest, and basically there are two main points, and I'll get to those shortly. So, okay, how do I do this? How do I move forward? Next slide. Okay, so as you recall, we had an ERT in February 2012, and we're still working our way through the fallout of that. Among the requirements, the ERT decision imposed upon waste management requirement to delineate the leachate plume coming off the Richmond landfill and bring it into compliance with Ontario laws. So this is an update on that. MECP has recently declared the contamination plume to be reasonably delineated. Very interesting wording. We, concerned citizens, have indicated we do not agree with that opinion, mostly due to the issues related to contamination of the Martin property to the east of the landfill site. Very little testing is being carried out on that site, largely due to a lack of agreement between the Martins and Waste Management. So you've seen this slide before. The area of interest, the Martin property, the boundary is here. And this is Beechwood Road along here. And this is the area right in here inside this circle where the principal concerns remain, in my opinion. So you're likely aware, I think certain members of council and town staff got the applications from Waste Management. There are 3 of them. One is to obtain approval for the contaminant attenuation zone and a revised environmental monitoring plan. The second is to request approval of a highly controversial purge well system to control contamination onto the Martin property. And the third application is to seek approval to deposit the contaminated groundwater generated by the purge well system into the Richmond landfill stormwater ponds, essentially onto the surface. The public comment period for 2 of those applications ends on the 26th of February, so there is a bit of a time constraint here. And due to the long history of failures to effectively monitor this site, we believe these documents need to be independently reviewed before the comment period runs out. At the most recent Public Liaison Committee meeting, January 18, we requested funds from both Waste Management and MECP to let us hire an independent expert to review these documents. And both of them refused to provide funds. That's been their approach from the beginning. Despite that, we have asked our longtime hydrogeological expert, Mr. Wilf Ruland, to provide us with an estimate of the cost of performing a review of these applications. So he's looking at those documents right now. We do not yet have an estimate. Once we have his reply, we will decide if we can afford to hire him, basically. As you're well aware, we have outstanding debts from the ERT process. This has been going on for years, and we don't have the funds to reasonably carry out these tasks. So it is possible that we will not have the funds to engage Mr. Ruland for all or even potentially any of this work. So council might wish to consider joining with CCCTE to fund this review, depending on how you feel about how important this review might be. In our opinion, if Mr. Ruland should find that all this work has resulted in a good system, a good, safe monitoring plan, and a good system for controlling the contaminants, then that would give us the confidence to say that all is well. On the other hand, he finds gaps and flaws, as he has every time he's looked at these things in the past, CCCTE, and I assume Greater Napanee would want to submit comments to that effect before the deadline of the 26th of February. So that's the first point I wanted to make tonight. The second point I'd like to make is that Mr. Ruland reported to us that there was a press release from Ingersoll, Ontario recently. I have a link in the file here for you to go to that press release from Ingersoll, Ontario. You might be interested that the situation confirms the use of Bill 197 provisions that give municipalities an effective veto over any unreasonable landfill proposal. This might be an appropriate way to address the ongoing threat from BREC. As you know, Beechwood Road Environmental Center expansion proposal is still pending, and Waste Management could start the environmental assessment process on that any day. On the other hand, it's conceivable that resolution from Napanee and its neighbors could kill it forever. And I think that might be something council might wish to consider. What have I done here? Thank you for this presentation. I'm happy to take any questions you may have. And let me see if I can stop sharing. Did that do it?
Yep, it did. Thanks, Ian. Yeah. Councillor Pennell, go ahead, please. Yeah.
Thank you, Worship. Through you, Ian, thank you very much for coming tonight, and especially with your patience of waiting so long to present to us. I'm just wondering if you can tell us, and especially the people at home, where to go to make comments before February 26th.
Yeah, the site is the Ontario's Environmental Bill of Rights Registry. If you Google that, it'll take you right to it. And of course, just type in the search window there, Richmond landfill, and you'll get led straight to those documents.
So thank you. Just to repeat, that is Ontario Bill of Rights Registry.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Brianna always does an update of council notes, and what I would request with council's permission is that Brianna include that link in her, both the report to council and the report that is posted on our website and goes out as a notice to the people that sign up for them. If that would meet, if that would be okay with council, then they've got it to go to. Good, thank you. Anyone else? Any questions for Ian? Ian, you say that at the meeting of the
PLC.
Yeah, they've got it up and going again with attendance at it, probably virtual.
It is virtual, yes.
And a good representation?
I would say representation is sketchy.
Yes.
Napanee has been represented, but Tyendinaga Township, Besaranto, and the Mohawks have not been attending.
Well, it's kind of, it is a tight, I'm going to look to staff, and I know that we haven't, I know that we've got Mr. Dayfo on here. We don't have Todd, and we don't have Christy. So I'm looking for a little guidance from staff, and perhaps it's even our CAO, as to how we would be in a position, if we so wish, to put comments in and to even discuss at another council meeting the recommendation from the article in the Blackburn News. Can someone on staff poke their head out and let me know how we could do this? Mr. Pinson, thank you.
Your Worship, I don't know if it's worthwhile me poking my head out in a dangerous situation like this. I think the only thing I could offer is we could have a discussion. We have our senior leadership team meeting tomorrow, and we can discuss what this looks like and how we move forward. Quite honestly, I can't give you an opinion on it now. I'm not sure if Peter could or not.
Thank you. Peter, any further guidance on this? If it's going to go to SLT tomorrow, I'd be okay with that.
Through your worship, maybe perhaps after this goes through SLT, staff could bring back a report. This is a bit of an update for that. We do have a bit of time before the end of February.
Okay. All right. Good. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, John.
May I, Mayor? I
Certainly.
would just offer during that meeting, if my opinion or expertise would be of any use, I'd be happy to phone in or whatever, if that would be useful.
Okay, and I know that Peter and Todd have your contacts, but I see our CAO has popped up again. John, did you wish to say something?
I was just going to say, Your Worship, that we would make sure that we got Mr. Munro's comments if they were like, once we circle on this tomorrow, we'll figure out what we need moving forward.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Ian. And again, thank you for staying up this late.
Thank you for your time, and I hope you all get to bed soon.
No, it won't be for a minute, but thank you so much.
Good night, all.
Good night. So I would take then, I'm assuming that Madam Clerk would like a motion to note and receive. That, Jessica, is that what you're looking for direction?
Yes, please, Your
Worship.
Worship.
The deputation. Yeah, thank you. Deputy Mayor Kaiser, Councillor McCormack, all in favor of that motion. Motion is carried. Thank you. We're on to 7.1. Motion for the adoption of the minutes of the regular session of council for January the 11th, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Kaiser, Councillor Richardson, all in favor of that motion. Motion is carried. Thank you. Correspondence for information, 8.1. You have correspondence for information dated January the 25th. Council's wishes, you have a recommendation to receive for information those items. Deputy Mayor Kaiser, moved by Councillor McCormack, seconded. Any comments or questions? If not, all in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you. Correspondence for action, Communities in Bloom, Greater Napanee, and Lennox Horticultural Society and Garden Club. Looking for us to proclaim 2022 as the year of the garden in the town of Greater Napanee. Move to do the proclamation. Deputy Mayor Kaiser, Councillor Johnson is seconding that. Any comments or questions, Deputy Mayor Kaiser?
Just curious if you happen to know, Your Worship, or if anybody else knows if the Communities in Bloom is becoming a little more active, and only in the sense that we had been involved in scoring for a few years there, but it kind of was put off because of the heavy volunteer commitment. Is that something that's coming back in the near future? And just curious more than anything.
I'll just make a very short and general comment, because even though I support them very much during this tenure of council, I haven't had a chance to catch up with them. Certainly not looking, I don't think, to go into the heavy judging like we used to. Communities in Bloom has started to take a much different look at what Communities in Bloom should be. It's not all how many blooms that you get. It's the environmental, it's the volunteerism, and I think this is just something that will really help get volunteers out between the two organizations, and it also is sort of a feel good. Once one person on the street puts some flowers in, the next person does the same thing. So it'll continue, but not to what it used to be when we first started it, if that helps. Okay, and did we get a vote on the, no, we didn't. So all in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. I'm sure that we'll hear much more on that as it goes. Unfinished business, I see none. Committee reports, we have, sorry, Councillor Pennell.
Thank you, Worship. I'm just wondering if this under unfinished business, if this is where I would ask to have a report on the Harrington Bridge come back for our February 22nd meeting. An update.
Madam Clerk, where would you like that to come out of? Statements by members, unfinished business?
I guess it is normally new business or notice of motion would be when we would handle those. I guess this is a matter that has come before, so I can see why the question came up under unfinished business.
Days gone by, it would be unfinished business, but if you wish, I can have Councillor Fennell bring it up either by statements by members or a notice of motion to bring it forward, which we could handle tonight if we have the right number.
Let's
Deputy Mayor Kaiser's got his hands up. You go ahead.
I'm just, not to belabor it or mess it up anymore, but I have been in contact with Mr. Defo not too far back, a couple weeks. It's ongoing, and I think he's got something that'll probably show up in front of us in the near future. And maybe he's listening long enough, and maybe that's as far as it needs to go at this time. There's nothing to report yet, but I'm sure there's something coming soon. So maybe a motion for that is not needed at this time. It's working.
I know Councillor Fennell is interested in making sure that it goes forward too. Councillor Fennell.
In a roundabout way, I got the answer I was looking for. So it's
Okay,
in the
there
works.
you go.
So thank you all. Thank you.
You're very welcome. There are no committee reports, activity reports, community and corporate services. Mr. Zatterberg, do you have anything that you would like to add to your report?
Nothing to add from what's written, Your Worship.
Any questions for Mr. Zatterberg? Yep, Councillor Richardson and then Councillor Johnson.
No questions, just a statement. I'm glad to see that the care and maintenance trust fund account has been transferred to the town. It was a long time coming, and we're moving forward with it. So I'm glad to see that. Thank you very much for your work on that, Brant.
Good stuff. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. We've talked quite a few times already through tonight's council meeting that we have community engagement platform of Let's Talk Greater Napanee. And I just wanted to ask Mr. Zatterberg if he could tell people once again how to find it on the Town of Greater Napanee's website, because it can be a little bit difficult to find the links for it.
Your Worship, I'll ask Brianna Clement to come on and answer that question.
So, Your Worship, I apologize. My camera's not working.
Okay.
So there's a direct link that we've been promoting to the public through all of our communication. The direct link is www.letstalkgreaternapanee.ca. So if they type that in their internet browser, that'll take them directly to the site. Through our website, there's also a page under Your Town Hall, the header on the homepage that has a link to the community engagement platform as well, if they're not familiar with the direct link.
Okay, that helped, Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Brianna. That's exactly what I needed.
Okay, anything further for Mr. Zatterberg? If not, I'll continue on to emergency services. Chief, do you have anything that you wish to add to your report?
No, Your Worship. Any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Council, any questions of the chief regarding the emergency services? No, thank you. Financial services, any questions on that, please direct them to our CAO, Mr. Pinsent. Seeing none. Growth and expansion. Michael, if you got anything you wish to add to your report?
Nothing that I wish to add, Your Worship.
Any questions to Michael on his report? Yeah, Councillor Richardson?
Just briefly, Your Worship, I guess the COVID has found another victim with respect to a in-person meeting for the Tomlinson asphalt plant.
Yes, Your Worship. Unfortunately, with current provincial restrictions and timelines that were previously discussed in December, we're at the mercy of the province with regards to numbers for indoor gatherings. So a virtual public meeting proposed on February 24th. That's identified on the Bang the Table page, and a public notice will be going out for circulation in the local newspaper this coming this coming Thursday as well to identify that date and venue.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And I guess like there's no Hail Mary type of situation where we could squeeze in an in-person meeting after that, or our timelines and time restraints fairly tight.
Through your worship, if following the virtual meeting, council sees merit in holding an in-person meeting, a subsequent in-person meeting, that could be accomplished depending on provincial direction. Ideally, we're able to accommodate all the members of the public that wish to speak to council through this virtual means. We are preparing to make accommodations for any individuals that do not have access to the internet or this platform. Essentially, we're making any accommodations for those individuals as they may require them. But if after the virtual public meeting, if there's still desirable an in-person meeting, we can further consider that. We are beyond the timeline to make a decision on the application. However, Tomlinson certainly is sympathetic to the COVID-related issues, and that they are certainly eager to get on with the public meeting and with getting a decision and resolution on the matter. So perhaps we hold the first public meeting, see how it goes, see what sort of feedback we get. If there is still a push to have an in-person meeting, then we can revisit that at a later date.
Yeah, perfect. Good. Thanks a bunch.
Thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none, infrastructure services. Sorry. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor. Do you have questions for Peter on this?
I do, and maybe it's more appropriate for Jeff, but it's not so much a question as a comment, particular to the Oliver Side Road Bridge. In the event of the contractor having gone bankrupt, that affected 3 bridges in the region, 2 of them being on County Road 2 and County Road 41, and this one. In the case of the other 2, both of those bridges are still fully serviceable. But if in your talks, Mr. Cuthell, with bonding agents and the lawyers and stuff, it needs to be fully impressed upon them that this bridge is completely absent and it's posing a nuisance to the community and the residents in that area and the business in that area. And if they can move on it in any way, shape, or form faster than the other 2, which are fully serviceable at this time, this needs to be a priority, this one, because it's completely absent. Much as it's a secondary road or tertiary road, however you classify it, it's completely unavailable for use in the absence of this bridge. And I just wanted to make that comment that, I know you're working on our behalf and working on the community's behalf and making that point, but I just wanted to give you that sort of backing that this one should be a priority over the other 2 and being addressed first, because they're still being used fully. And this one's not there at all. Thank you.
Thanks. And the only follow-up that I would have, because I'd had some conversation with residents out in that area that were concerned that GPS wasn't directing people properly. And of course, both Jeff and the county team have worked to make sure that the information is updated as much as possible. We just can't control anything but regular GPS. And if people don't update, they're not going to find out what's open and closed. And it's not up to the county, it's not up to the town to even begin to update the millions of other apps that people are using. So even though we've got it out there, I know that both the town and the county are doing their best to make sure that people are directed, but we're sorry if they won't pay attention to updating themselves, or if whoever it is that's the GPS god decides that they're going to take it down for some reason because they haven't had an update, then it's certainly not our fault. Okay, thank you. Legislative services, Jessica.
Nothing to add to the report, Your Worship, but I can take questions.
Anything okay, Deputy Mayor?
again, less of a question, more of a comment under the election. It should be clearly communicated and clearly understood by every resident across the entire province that it is the voters' responsibility to ensure that their information is accurately captured by MPAC. They generate the voters list. It's not up to the town to correct it, but we often do assist or guide. But really, it comes back to the voters making sure that their information is captured correctly so that they get on the voters list and make sure they're eligible to vote. Just wanted to put that out there. Thank you.
Anything further for legislative services? If not, I would entertain a motion to note and receive all activity reports. Moved by Councillor Norrie, seconded by Councillor Johnson. All in favor of that motion? Motion is carried. Thank you. Staff report, CAO 2022 business plan. Mr. Pinsent.
Thank you, Your Worship. So, Council, you've got a business plan in front of you, 20 some odd pages. Normally, you'd have a strategic plan before you got into a business plan, so it's a bit of a cart before the horse. But I think it's important when you're managing basically a multi-million-dollar business with 80 to 100 employees, depending on how you count it, with a bunch of executives that you do articulate a bit of a plan moving forward with an articulation of priorities. This allows me to have a rudimentary performance management framework in place. So when I sit down with my GMs and we sit down at senior leadership table, we can discuss what's on that map. If you look at page 5 with the departmental priorities breakdown, it also articulates by organization some of strengths, weaknesses, some of their risks and challenges facing this year. This really is baby steps in terms of how we I would suspect as we get further on this, a sophisticated organization that plans, manages, and reports on what it does on an annual basis. I'll leave it at that. And if you have any questions in terms of what's on there, I would like to note in terms of those priorities, the way we frame them as excellence, growth, services, partnerships, and livability are sort of things we've put in there just as placeholders. They are probably not the final pillars of a strategic plan, but there's some of the things that I've seen in my past experience at which will sort of put these in the right components or in the right places. So happy to take questions if you have any. But like I said, it's just the first step in how we, on an annual basis, plan the business of the municipality's affairs.
Questions directed to John. I will go with Councillor Johnson, and then I'll go with Councillor Richardson.
Thank you, Mayor. John, I wanted to say first, I really like this document. It's nice to see that you have started a framework that will be a living document moving forward. I especially like the fact that every section of service that's provided by the town is cognizant through this document of risks and challenges that are coming in the next year. The question I had for you is, once a strategic plan is done, are you going to be adding short-term and long-term goals to this?
Through the chair to Councillor Johnson, absolutely. I would suspect that this document will change a little bit in terms of what the immediate goals are of this year, short and long-term goals. I didn't want to get into medium and long-term goals because realistically, in the absence of a strategic plan, I would be making those up. But it's, and to your point, I think this is a good training exercise for staff as well, to be able to see what everybody does and have some of the GMs go through that exercise of having to think about what they do and some of the things that cause them potentially to stay up at night.
Just excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Richardson.
Just briefly, Your Worship, with respect to the organizational chart, the chart that we're looking at tonight with respect to, I guess, the senior leadership team, is this chart more so for reporting purposes, or is enumeration associated to the chart as we're looking at it?
So through the chair to Councillor Richardson, if you're looking at the organization chart on page 5, that represents the general manager structure plus it's basically my senior leadership team. I don't think we have the director of HR. That's been an addition recently because of a lot of the HR issues. It's appropriate to have him at the table. This is sort of the first cut at it. I remember before I had this job looking for an organization chart, I couldn't really find one. We'll start to drill down this and make this a little bit more indicative of what we do, and it will likely change over this year as we get into some of our further planning processes as well.
Yeah, okay. I'm encouraged by the balance that's involved with the chart. I guess my concerns is that as far as enumeration goes and the payment of upper level employees, there was a thought out there at one point that we may have been a little bit top heavy. I just don't want to continue down that road, I guess is the best way to put it. So I'm sensing from what you're saying is that enumeration isn't associated to the top.
No, I see what you mean. Yeah, realistically, things like, these are at different levels. So for example, your clerk is not a general manager, but your clerk is critical to the functioning of a senior leadership team and how administration works, both from an executive services standpoint and a legislative services standpoint. Yeah, so that, and you've even got, for example, my executive assistant sits at SLT because he is a key, cog in the wheel of organizing and making sure the organization works. So org charts, the key people are there at the top, especially that help me or greatly help me manage the organization and all those things that go with it.
Okay, nope, that's great. And I think you said it in a nutshell, is that when the strat plan gets closer to fruition, we could be looking at something different again, I suppose. So thank you.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay, anything further from council? Yeah, Councillor McCormack.
Thank you, Your Worship. And just questioning the amount for staffing costs for the CAO's office comprised of 2 individuals, and the amount that's shown there doesn't seem to jive with what I thought we were paying. So I don't know if that's correct amount.
There's 2 people in there. There may be some ancillary costs in terms of how we attribute some of the other people that help with the executive office. But I'd be happy to provide that detail. I'll dig into it and make sure we articulate exactly what that is.
Yeah, if you could, I'd appreciate it, John, because the other departments, there's more people involved. So to break it down, it's kind of difficult to pinpoint. But this one just stood out. I mean, I think there's other costs that are shown there that are not reflective of what the actual pay structure is.
Yeah, I'll make sure I get that detail to you, Councillor.
Thank you.
And if there's a mistake, we'll make sure it's fixed.
Great.
Thank you. Anything further? If not, council, you do have a recommendation before you that we receive as information, and that this will be the guiding document for the 2022 business plan across the town, and future business plans will be built off of the strategic plan that will be in place for future years. Moved by Deputy Mayor Kaiser, seconded by Councillor Johnson. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. So 12.2, I don't know whether the best way to phrase that is we have received for information, and we will go back to and further that council has asked for more information before directing them to the Committee of Adjustments. Okay, moved by Deputy Mayor Kaiser, seconded by Councillor Richardson. Comments or questions? Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, I would just offer that in deference to our staff who took the time to prepare this report for tonight's meeting, I just think that there's questions that couldn't have been anticipated prior, and I appreciate the work that went into it, and I don't mean to discard it at hand, but obviously we came upon some questions that weren't anticipated. So
Yeah,
Thank
no,
you.
good, yeah, no, good point, because Chris did put a lot of work into this, and it could be something that would be very valuable to us, thank you. So I have a mover and a seconder, all in favor of that motion. Motion is carried, thank you. Emergency Services Response Plan. Chief. Oh, Deputy Chief.
How are you?
Sorry, Bill, I hadn't read that far ahead. All yours.
I have nothing further to add to the report, but I am willing to answer any questions at this time. Through you, Chair.
Any further questions, Bill, regarding his report? Seeing none, you do have a recommendation before you that we receive the report and further that council consider bylaw 2022-0005 for adoption later in this meeting. Moved by Councillor Pennell, seconded by Councillor McCormack. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion. Motion is carried. Thank you, Bill. Financial Services, tax arrears update. You do have a tax arrears update within your agenda this evening. Mr. Pinsent will speak to or carry forward any questions you might have for our treasurer at this point. Councillor McCormack.
Just a comment, Your Worship, what a great job they're doing.
There you go. Easy.
Thank you.
Good. That's an easy one. Easy one to answer, John.
I am
Did
an
I-
accountant. I'm an accountant, but I'm not your treasurer. I will make sure I pass that on to the treasurer.
Thank you. Terry, did I see your hand up?
No, Your Worship, I'm just flipping through papers here, so.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Anything further? Councillor Pennell.
Thank you, through your worship, to John. I'm just wondering, with the report says that there's 18 houses or 18 properties that will be going up for tax sale. I'm just wondering when that they would be listed.
I'll have to get back to you. Through the chair, I'll have to get back to you, Councillor Pennell, because it was a sort of short notice that Paul could not make it this evening. I'll make sure I'll answer your question.
I completely understand. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. So if there are no further questions, I need a motion that we receive for information the 2021 year-end tax arrears update report. Moved by Councillor Pennell, seconded by Councillor Richardson. No further comments or questions. All in favor of the motion. Motion is carried. Thank you. And I think we all echo Councillor McCormack's. It is a big dent in it. Lots more to go, but a big dent and a good work structure. 12.5 Infrastructure Services, explore net municipal access agreement. Yes. See, we're keeping you up late. Hope you don't have to go in early. Anything you wish to add to this report or speak to council about, Jeff?
To you, Madam Mayor, no, I'll be here to answer any questions council may have.
Councillor Richardson, go ahead, and I'll go to you, Councillor Pennell. Did you had your hand up? Okay.
Just briefly, thanks, Jeff. Is this sort of a standard type thing that would be offered to all the internet providers? I'm sensing that's probably what it is.
Yes, through your worship, completely correct, Councillor Richardson. This is something we have for anyone looking to install or maintain or construct their network or infrastructure within our road right of ways. So we have them with others like Enbridge Gas, Hydro, and Bell.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Pennell.
Thank you, worship. My question has been answered. Thank you.
There you go. That was easy. Nothing else from council on this. You do have a recommendation the council received for information and further the council directs staff to enter into a municipal access agreement with ExploreNet Communications stating the terms and conditions for the construction, operation, and maintenance of its telecommunication equipment located within town road right-of-way. Moved by Councillor Norrie, seconded by Deputy Mayor Kaiser. All in favor of that motion? Motion is carried. Thank you. Infrastructure Services, award of Bridge Street, Richard Street, Shoreline Crescent reconstruction. Jeff, I think we're back to you.
Yes,
Go ahead,
again,
please.
Your Worship, I believe all the details are in the council report, though I'm here to add address any extra comments.
Yeah, thank you. Questions directed to Jeff. Go ahead, Councillor Richardson.
Yeah, I just want to thank Jeff for the format of the report. It's got everything in it that I was looking for at previous council meetings. So thank you very much. It made a very easy read.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Pennell.
Thank you, through your worship, to Jeff. Jeff, I'm just wondering, do you have any concerns, even though that that this company came first in your process? Do you have any outstanding concerns that you have with if you were going to release this this job to them, and you know, being a little gun shy with the bridges and stuff like that? Just wondering what your thoughts are on all of this, and even though that's this company checks all the boxes, how do you feel about this?
To Your Worship, great question. No reservations whatsoever with Lennox and Excavating. They completed phase 1 of our digging downtown, and as well as phase 3, finished on time. Working relationship with the company has just been class A. It's been impeccable, so no reservations at all.
Great, thank you.
Any further questions for Jeff on this? If not, we have a recommendation that we receive for information, as well as further the council awards the tender to the highest ranked bid score, Len Corcoran Excavating Limited, for the sum of $3,643,483.26, including HST, and further that council approve a total budget of the same amount, including HST. Moved by Councillor McCormack, seconded by Councillor Johnson. Any further questions or comments? Deputy Mayor Kaiser.
Just to correct your your reading, it's not the same amount. It is a higher amount for the total budget of the project.
Yeah, no, and I thought I was getting away with that, but I can see that I'm not, and I'm sure that's what Councillor Pennell was there for too. I'll go back and correct that. Approve a total project budget of $3,968,483.26, including HST. Difference being, Jeff, you want to explain that to the public, what the difference is?
Yes, so the construction costs would be any items outlined within the tender, and then the additional costs would account for engineering, contract administration, contract inspection, material testing, and then as well as any potential, there is a couple utility relocates, tree cuttings, and then a contingency in there as well.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. My eyes are normally closed by then, so by now, so it kind of got past me. So thank you very much. I have a mover and a seconder. All in favor of that motion? Motion is carried. Thank you. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Legislative Services. Madam Clerk, or is this Kate? No, Madam Clerk. Okay. Sale of land bylaw review. Go ahead, Jessica. Anything you wish to add to your report?
Thank you, Your Worship. No, I think the report is probably long enough as it is, but I am here to take questions.
I'll go to Councillor Pennell, then I'll go to Councillor Richardson, and then I'll go to Councillor Norrie.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To Madam Clerk, I just have a comment. I'm not sure if we can change this or not, but on page 14, item number 8B, I was thinking we could delete the phrase that the land would have no market value, and add in so that the paragraph would read, in the opinion of the town, the best use would be an addition to one or more abutting properties, and continue the paragraph like that. I don't want to give the thought out to people that just because a piece of land is landlocked, that it has a zero value to it. It's just that the best use would be to have it join into an existing property.
That is a fair comment, and that is the purpose of this report, is to get these kinds of comments and make sure that any revisions are caught before we take a bylaw forward.
Fantastic thing. And I just have one more on that 9A subsection I guess. It says something to the effect of circulating, if a piece of property is going to be coming up or deemed surplus, to circulate this out to maybe interested parties. And my issue with this is that it sounds like again, the outside looking in, it would sound as if we would give special treatment to people, and it would look like a perceived advantage. I'm just wondering why that comment is in there. Does that make sense?
So, sorry, which section was that again?
9AI. So, and
sorry, too many tabs open here.
Yeah. Let me open mine and.
Oh. Yes, I see where that's like the intent with that is definitely more like the county and other government agencies that might have an opinion, but we can certainly make that language more specific. The intention is definitely not to go talk to like developers, like have side conversations with them before something goes public. It was more government stakeholders who we should be talking to, just to make sure that we're not missing anything.
Yeah, fantastic. If you could do that, that'd be great. I just want to take away any perceived advantages from the outside looking in. That's all. And I appreciate it. Thank you. And that's all I have.
Councillor Richardson, and then Councillor Norrie, and then Deputy Mayor Kaiser.
Thank you, Worship. I mean, let's face it, this document is a document that was the end result of the KPMG report. I think at that point they said that our bylaw was at par. I believe this document puts us well above par, which is what we wanted to see, at least in my opinion. I think it's very thorough. I'm just going to throw something out there. Based on the report, the primary recommendation of staff is to establish a community development team. Would it be of any advantage to the community development team to have a member of council on that team as well? It sounds like it's going to have a member from each of the departments, and possibly maybe a member of council as well, similar to what we do with our committees of council. Secondly, the only thing I want to mention is to talk about the compliance certificate. The suggestion is that the compliance certificate be issued upon request. Is it a big deal if we just issued the compliance certificate on each one where it says shall be issued?
Through your worship, to speak to the first question, I think that can be a question we can discuss at senior leadership team and report back with more feedback. The intention with the community development team is just to make sure that all departments have a chance to weigh in, because sometimes they might know something about a property that another department doesn't, from an emergency perspective or infrastructure or anything like that. For the compliance certificate, yeah, the advice I was given on that was that we wouldn't register it to title as part of the transfer as a routine habit, but if the desire is to have something on record permanently that says, yes, we checked all the boxes on this and that's always part of our process, I think we can put that language in.
Yeah, that's great. I guess I'm a big fan of documentations, but I'll leave that up to the rest to weigh in as well. And as far as the committee goes, yeah, it's probably maybe to our advantage if we did have a conversation or weigh in on it tonight, and then let the senior management team weigh in as well. But I'm just throwing it out there for food for thought.
Councillor Norrie.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just curious. I read direct sale. This is what we were trying to get away from. Why is that chapter in there? Even, I know it's unsolicited lands and stuff for proposals, but why don't we just leave everything up to the company that's being hired to sell it? Why should the town get involved? This is what we're trying to get away from, or we were. I'm just curious, that's all.
Through your worship, sorry. Through your worship, the primary purpose with the direct sale is those lands that can, those landlocked parcels, they can only be developed by neighboring property. Right now, we have a fairly utilized road closure and sale system in place, and that is by direct sale because there are only typically 2 people who have the legal ability to request to purchase that land anyway.
Does that answer and satisfy your question, Councillor Norrie?
Yeah, I was just curious why it was in there, and that makes sense. But thank you.
Okay. And I'm just going to follow up on that one quickly, and then I'm going to go to the deputy mayor, and then I'm going to go to Councillor Johnson. Jessica, so when you're the direct sale, you're not referring to anything that's landlocked. We're just basically looking at the things that we have done in the past for road allowances and things like that people could bid on. Am I right? Or am I anywhere near right?
Your worship, if you go to section, where is this? Too many subsections. 9C4, no, 3, direct sale. When it's talking about method of sale, it says like the preferred method is going to be with the real estate agent or public tender option. Direct sale would be either there is a obvious development to the community that might be something like, for example, the proposal that was before council a few months ago of the partnership with the county.
Yes.
That's the sort of thing where that is a specific community benefit project. There's not the reason to go through a realtor in the same way. Or for things where it is those class 2 landlocked parcels where, again, there isn't an open market of people who could apply to develop that land.
They have no access to it. Okay, good, thank you. Where am I at? Deputy Mayor and then Councillor Johnson.
I think mine was answered, and I'll defer. Just go to Councillor Johnson. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Jessica, first I wanted to thank you for the preamble before the new bylaw because you clearly outlined exactly what the changes were and why you made them. I just have a question in regards to Part 2 procedures for property disposition under land inventory number 5. You've said the community development team is responsible for reviewing the town's land portfolio to determine which lands are required. We currently have an independent audit of all our properties and buildings to see what we can use and what we can't use. How often do you foresee the community development team going through a similar process? And should it be defined in the bylaw?
Through your worship, that is a question that has would need to be discussed more to come up with an answer on that, and we can certainly report back. The main purpose, one of the main changes we were trying to accomplish with this bylaw was to assign responsibilities so that everyone in the process knows who is responsible for what, which is why that paragraph 5 is in there. But certainly we can consider the question of whether that should be done on a scheduled basis and what that schedule should be and report back.
I would trust your judgment in that you don't need to report back on it. Just when you come out with the final bylaw, I will trust that you have the proper thing in there. Thank you.
Any further comments or questions? It is, thank you, Jessica. It is a very thorough report. It will be nice to get this cleared up. With the team, the regular review that Councillor Johnson or schedule to me is a good thing to know that we're looking at things on a regular basis. And with Councillor Richardson's comment that an addition of a council member would be a good idea. I don't think it would be a good idea at all. I think that we've got a team of people that we depend on to bring things forward, and that all of council should be hearing it at the same time. All of council should have input on it at the same time, just to keep things neat and tidy. With that, you do have a recommendation before you. The council received for information, and further the council provide direction or any additional revisions, which we have, for the sale of land. Moved by Councillor Johnson, seconded by Councillor Pennell. All in favor of that motion? Motion is carried. Thank you. Bylaws. Bylaw number 2022-0005 to adopt an emergency management program and emergency response plan for the town of Greater Napanee and to meet other requirements under the Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act. Read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Councillor McCormack, Deputy Mayor Kaiser, all in favor of that motion? Motion is carried. Thank you. Bylaw number 2022-0006 to authorize the corporation of the town of Greater Napanee to enter into a municipal access agreement with Explorenet Communications, Inc. Read first, second, and third time and finally passed. Councillor Pennell, Councillor McCormack, all in favor of that motion? Motion is carried. Thank you. Any new business? Councillor Norrie.
I'll be quick. Just under our report and issue, I'm having some issues with the headings because they don't apply to 90% of things that people call me about. And I don't want us to get like a plethora of headings like you have in policing, like, you know, more than Carter has pills, for goodness sakes. But can they either add just an other or eliminate all headings, and the person that reads it can just forward it to wherever, and that's the heading where it goes. It's very confusing when you get comments back saying, oh, that's not a bylaw issue. Well, there's no other flipping headings. So can they just make it easier by eliminating the headings? That's all, and let the person that reads it decide. Just a food for thought, and that's all I'm going to say. And no motion, nothing, just something to think about.
No, that's good. In the SLT team, I'm sure we'll take a look at that. Thank you, Councillor Norrie. Yep, thumbs up from our CAO. Any other new business? Any notices of motion? We did go into closed session before our regular council meeting tonight. So I would take a motion to rise and report coming out of closed session, please. Moved by Councillor Pennell, seconded by Councillor McCormack. All in favor of that motion? Motion is carried. Thank you. Within closed session this evening, we received, council adopted the minutes from the closed session of November 23rd. And also received information regarding labor relations item and gave directions to staff. Statements by members. Any statements by members? Councillor Richardson.
Just briefly, Your Worship, I just want to let the other members of council know and the public know that yesterday we attended a delegation with the Solicitor General. I guess I'll describe that as the fact I'm skeptically optimistic as to the information that we received. We received information from a member of the Provincial Correctional Facilities that's informed us that changes are coming within their system, which they are hopeful will reduce the calls for service at the institutions. I guess time is going to tell. I think we still have a lot of work to do, both behind the scenes and with the minister herself. I think what we need to do as well is to monitor, just to see if we are getting any type of relief from the changes that are supposed to happen within the correctional facilities themselves. So I know that we're not alone on this. I read a post from Her Worship up in Kempville that with the new jail that they're going to start up there, they're still hopeful they can enter into some type of an agreement with respect to the cost of policing the new facility they're expecting up there in 2027. So in any event, that's pretty much in a nutshell. I don't know if Her Worship has anything to add to it, but that's sort of my take on it.
Thank you, Councillor Richardson. It was our yearly meeting with Solgen, and I think she's kind of getting used to seeing us on the screen. And I guess, as Councillor Richardson said, we're just going to have to wait and see what some of these changes are going to help. And we certainly weren't the only municipality that was in front of them on OPP costings. Thank you. Any other statements by members? Councillor Norrie.
It's been said before, just a shout out to our staff from the Hill working on the snow. Yourself and myself met them at 4:30 in the morning, which I haven't seen in years. The other day when they were cleaning up downtown, and there was 17 of them, including private contractors, all happy, enjoying themselves. They were going from 2 in the morning till 2 in the afternoon. They weren't going to stop. So just a shout out, they've done a great job, and that's what I've been telling people when they've been phoning complaints. But most people that called me have been very happy about the snow removal. So just to the guys, that's great. That's all.
Thank you, Councillor Norrie, and I was putting you in training to be able to do that 4:30 coffee run. I didn't realize Tim Hortons wasn't open downtown until 5 o'clock. So you learn lots by getting up that early. And kudos, the team has done a great job. And Mr. Defoe, please take that back to the entire team, because they have done a wonderful job under pressure that we haven't had lately. Any other statements by members? Therefore, we're almost at the end. A bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Greater Napanee, first, second, and third reading, moved by Councillor Pennell, seconded by Deputy Mayor Kaiser. All in favor of that motion? Motion is carried. Motion to adjourn. Councillor McCormack, 2 hands from Deputy Mayor Kaiser. All in favor of that motion? Motion is carried. Thank you, Council, and thank you, staff. Man, oh man, we got to get away from these long meetings, but everything on was important tonight, and so we'll get by it. Thank you again. Good night, everyone. I could say safe home, but most of you aren't going too far.